I hope you can all hear me. I don't have a very loud voice, but I will try. So the UK made a huge step forward in addressing modern slavery with the introduction of the Modern Slavery Act in 2015. These developments were crucial, inspiring other countries to follow suit by introducing their own legislation, and ultimately bringing modern slavery into the public eye. But this is not enough. If we are to call ourselves world leaders in tackling modern slavery, then we must not stop here. We must address the fact that the current system is not providing enough support for victims and survivors of modern slavery. Why? First of all, there is no efficient system in place for the Home Office to collect data regarding the outcomes of victims. Since the 1st of February, not long ago, confirmed victims of modern slavery are now given just 45 days of formal protection. And if the referral leads to a negative outcome, they are given just 9 days. Although the data may be lacking, it seems intuitive that given the trauma suffered by these individuals, that this is simply not enough time to establish a meaningful recovery and a new life for themselves. Furthermore, a report by the National Audit Office states that there is no assurance that victims are not re-trafficked. Secondly, there are insufficient support systems in place to help survivors of modern slavery recover. This is exacerbated by the fact that we have limited data on the outcomes of victims and their needs, and also by the fact that the Home Office does not take responsibility for monitoring the standards of care received by survivors. So why is it so important to understand the needs of Britain's most vulnerable migrants? I would like to share with you a passage from an IOM report. Supporting psychological recovery often includes 3 stages, although there is no clear timeline for these stages in the recovery of trafficked persons, and an individual may move between them multiple times. In the first stage, it is essential to restore an individual's sense of safety and personal control over decision and events. At some point, those able to enter the second stage begin to address their traumatic experience and its impact on their mental health. The last stage includes receiving support, reintegrating into their original or adopted community. However, mental health status may fluctuate during reintegration. A key part of the reintegration process, a part I am campaigning for, is the right to English language learning. Many organisations, such as the Medai Trust and Hestia, identify the ability to speak the local language one of the most significant barriers to reintegration, and a report by the One Foundation highlighted the desire that female migrants and refugees have for learning English, something that they themselves recognise as an essential step in their independence and well-being. So this is why I am here today, calling on the government to re-evaluate the system. First of all, the Home Office needs a robust system through which they can collect data in order to monitor the outcomes of those who exit the NRM. Not only does this lack of data limit the extent of our understanding of this crime, but it also limits our ability to understand the needs of survivors and what kind of support systems need to be in place to help them effectively recover. In the era of big data, there is simply no excuse for this outdated system, and I am happy that the government continue to improve the system through digitalisation. Secondly, there is an urgent need for an improvement in the quality of care. Since most of the care provided to victims is provided for by charities, there is not enough capacity for all survivors to receive English language classes. The government needs to provide free English classes to survivors and make these a right that all survivors are entitled to. Furthermore, given the complexity of the psychological recovery, as highlighted by the IOM's report, these classes should be sensitive to the needs of survivors. Based on the limited data available, it has been found that symptoms of depression, anxiety, and PTSD were reported by 78% of female and 40% of male survivors in England. The recovery process is not linear, and therefore support should reflect this, especially English learning. For example, creating more informal lessons in which survivors could have the chance to learn English vicariously through activities such as cooking or sewing. These classes should be a safe and inclusive space for survivors, which is why it is fundamental that we understand their fluctuating needs. In 2018, there were 1,750 NRM referrals, 69% of which were for people originating outside of the UK. It's time we put ourselves in the shoes of a traffic survivor and consider the challenges of establishing a new life for themselves, a life in which they are in control. Survivors deserve to be understood. To conclude, I would like to reflect on the past months. I have learned so much about this issue. It has been eye-opening, emotional and empowering all at the same time. I will continue to share my experience with friends, family and others, many of whom are surprised to learn that this issue is closer to us than they think. I would like to invite you to join me in raising awareness and encouraging people to write to their MPs to take modern slavery seriously and ensure that survivors are given access to the tools that they need to learn English and rebuild their lives, escaping slavery for good. Thank you.
I work for an organisation, an independent organisation that I set up a few years ago called Beyond the Page. We work in Thanet in East Kent, which is a coastal district, and I thought it might be quite interesting to have a non-metropolitan perspective on this. It's not all about London or Rotherham or Sheffield or Manchester. We're talking coastal and rural as well in this subject. I deliver a women-only ESOL community project called United Mothers. We run 4 groups a week, all year round, on a long-term basis. We don't do 10 to 12-week short jobs, we do 3 years at a time. And we've worked with over 160 women from 32 different countries in our little neck of the woods. One of our groups is at a Madai Safe House for survivors with children. There are up to 18 women there, mostly young, mostly very pregnant and with young children. And the majority are Albanian with little English. Of the women who are there, we've met several with learning difficulties, some who are first language illiterate, some who are university graduates, some who are first language English fluent, but are hiding the fact they've got no reading and writing. There's a huge range of what women are bringing into the space in terms of their learning need. What I wanted to pick up first of all from what Stella was saying is that these women go way beyond the 45 days. They go way beyond. They're having babies. They're not moving until the babies are born, 6 weeks old, and are ready to be rehoused. Some are involved in criminal cases and can't go. And so we're really working with a very different set of circumstances in terms of what's supposed to be an initial safe house. We've got 2 main aims in our work, and I was very glad to hear confidence. Speaking confidence is our very, very first aim, and that's in order for all migrant women that we work with to become active and engaged citizens in wherever they're going to live, whether it's now or where they're moving on to. And I mean things like being able to support your children to go to school successfully, helping out your neighbours, maybe doing some voluntary work or getting into work, all sorts of things, whatever works for this particular person. And our second main aim is to build community. We try to build community in whatever situation we are in with the women that we're working with. And that means from the classroom outwards. We create an intercultural, multilingual space, and we invite English speakers into our space. That makes a difference in terms of who's owning the room, who's owning the space, and who's invited in as a guest and a visitor. That builds our confidence. So we try to make every learning space safe and fun and creative and very friendly. Why are we focusing on those 2 particular aims? Well, we did some work together with Wonder Foundation a couple of years ago. We did some national research into women-only community ESOL, English for speakers of other languages. And 97% of women said their main aim was speaking confidence, particularly in regard to speaking with men, interestingly. My local research with migrant mothers showed me that very many were getting lost on their journey into British society, even when they attended adult education ESOL. And the most vulnerable women, including those who were survivors or being trafficked, were not being reached. Also, I mean, I'm a Londoner, born and bred, and I've been out of London living and working for sort of 15 years now. I'm in a district where the far right had a very strong foothold. Some of you will remember Nigel Farage's attempt to take our particular constituency, and the fact that we've got the first UKIP, have had the first UKIP council in the country. This is a place that people find intimidating, scary and unfriendly. But my experience of working particularly with service providers is that, and other mothers, is that people on the whole are either not or don't intend to be racist. What they do say to me is, I don't know how to speak to those people, they don't speak my language, and I was never any good at French at school, and really, no, I'm going to insult them and I won't know what to say. And they make for the door. So what we've got is a lack of confidence on both sides, and that's the bit that we feel that we really want to do some work on. So, teaching English, Olivia asked me all these questions. She said, it's completely impossible in 10 minutes. She said, what makes it effective? What approach is effective in working with survivors? And I guess I've got about 3 main criteria, and I have to tell you that mainstream formal language courses don't meet my criteria. Number 1, reduce all your barriers to learning as far as you possibly can. What that means for us is, it's free, it's completely free. There's no entry criteria. You don't have to pass a test. We don't want to know where you've come from or how much money you've got. We're not running it for a few weeks. We're going to be there for a very long time until you've got fed up and you've got something else better to do. So women can go away and they can come back. They go out, they have their babies, they come back. Women in the community groups go to work, come back. And that means there's a safe place that they know is theirs, that's their community, where they can reach the English language that they need. Second one is make it fit for purpose for your particular group of survivors. So obviously what's happening in the Maddai Safe House with mothers, young mothers and some older women is very specific around their needs. We know other people will be working on entry to employment, for example. For us, what do? We talk about babies a lot. Baby care, health visitor appointments, being able to negotiate your birth plan with the hospital. Women are arriving when they're 7.5, 8.5 months pregnant with no English whatsoever. So they're absolutely terrified at the point of entry. We invite community nurses in to run bespoke workshops. We do health and safety. We do sleeping patterns. We do all sorts of stuff. We prepare for independence, mapping the community. Where do you live? Where are the services? How do you find something when you move on? We work on being part of a residential community. We eat together at the end of every session. We did this hysterical health and safety audit, crawling around the floor, being 2-year-olds, kind of, is this place safe to, okay, don't do this. They'd failed their health and safety audit, the Maddai people at the refuge, they were very fed up and upset. And so we did an assessment around the building to find things that we thought were safe and weren't safe. And then we got the women to do posters that they thought everybody could understand. So we'd kind of done some practical work around the health and safety business of being in the kitchen and all of that with the kids. We talk a lot about food, and growing food was one of the things that we really got into. We discovered there was this kind of garden outside, and we could probably grow some stuff, so we nicked a spoon out the kitchen and kind of dug a couple of holes and thought we could get some going. And out of that, we developed a 6-month project called Growing Together. And we went out, we employed somebody, we had the garden developed, they grew food, they swapped ideas, they ate together, they cooked together, we made lots of stuff, we had picnics and it was great. Can't afford it this year. So I would say that we also have to think about our methodology and the teams people that we employ if we really want to be effective. Again, who's your group of survivors? What do they want? And what can you achieve with that particular group? and I'll make a plea here, please will you employ fully qualified, skilled and experienced ESOL teachers like me. There are some excellent volunteers. We need excellent volunteers. I have two who come with me every week. One's got an MBE for her services with young women, and the other is a fully qualified nurse. We don't skimp on them, but don't skimp on the kind of work that you need to teach a very diverse group of people. I also work in a cross-disciplinary fashion. Because speaking confidence is so important for us, over 5 years now, I've developed a practice with a voice coach who's also a community artist. So what that means is that we're highly effective at getting voices into the room. Everybody heard, everybody listened to. And it means that we break down those barriers of shyness and build our community much faster. Very, very important in a space where women are arriving one night and they're in with us the next morning. They're invited in, they come straight into the group, and they're held straight away in the sounds that we make together. The staff have commented that people transform in 5 minutes when they're in our warm-up. And we sing. Anybody who knows anything about community singing knows that it improves community cohesion no end. I thought you might like to hear a bit, if you'll indulge me. I've got 1 minute of the women singing. Okay, so the first bit is the singing in the refuge 1 week. We're singing Bumalena, which is Make My Heart Happy. Look at that. Olivia also asked, what are the challenges and lessons learned? Okay, as a provider, getting my team through the door, getting enough money. That's my first challenge. There are 8 of us, 4 in the creche, 2 volunteers and 2 facilitators. And so far, it's cost me £45,000, for which I've had no government money whatsoever. That makes us and the work very vulnerable. As a teacher, well, the range of the learners. But actually, I'll tell you what's the hardest in a way, and that's, it's the waiting. It's the waiting that women are going through. They don't know when they're going to leave. They don't know where they're going to go. They're watching their friends leave, and then they're left bereft and they're kind of grieving. It's like teaching in an airport departure lounge. You know, when you're in those places and you're kind of stuck and you're watching the board and you're waiting for your flight, it's like that. Women don't know when they're going to be leaving. And every now and again a name flashes up and somebody's off, and you've no idea when it's your turn. And you've no idea how long you're going to have to wait till then. The anxiety and the stress of that is phenomenal. And trying to teach in those circumstances is really very, very tricky. In fact, I was at Madai this afternoon, and women said their greetings to you and have got messages. But one of the women's had a headache for about 3 weeks, and she said, it's the anxiety, I'm my head. And she started crying, and she said, I'm just really scared. I'm really scared. I don't know where I'm going. And all I want is a normal life. And she just cried. So, does it work? Well, yes, it works. Everybody comes if they don't have an appointment, and our surveys show 100% improvement in confidence. Over a third of the women in our community groups have found work. The creche staff say women can share information. They're much less anxious about leaving their children. They're building that trusting relationship. And the women have sent messages. They've said to tell the government that English has got to be free. They need it. One woman said, before I was a mouse and now I'm a lion, which I kind of like. And the last bit I'd like to leave you with is from a woman who's 60 years old. She's Chinese. She's been in the refuge for several months, and when we first met her, she couldn't spell her 2-letter name. She didn't know where to put those letters on the page, and we couldn't understand anything she said at all. She was unintelligible. But she said to tell you this. She said, I'm Chinese and I need to learn English. I live in England and I want to work. If I can't speak English, English people won't give me work. So I can't eat. No home, which makes me feel crazy. I don't want to beg. I want to earn money through work.